This next Devo is called But I Stutter. And it's kind of what Moses said to God when he called him to lead the children of Israel. He had a speech impediment. So sometimes our issue with God is regarding our calling or our purpose in life. Some search their entire life for their calling or purpose and they never seem to find it and feel like God has passed them by. Others hear God's call, but they feel like they have shortcomings, or they're fearful, or they lack the resources to do what God has called them to do. Having purpose and having a call is really important to our place on this earth, and we can have issues with God when that doesn't work out. So like I said, Moses balked when God called him to lead the people. He had a speech issue and he was afraid, and Exodus 4 tells us the story. Moses asked God several questions. What if the people don't listen? What if he doesn't speak well? And in verse 11, God reminds Moses who made his mouth and who made his eyes. And in verse 12, he tells him to go and that God will teach him what to say. And in verse 13, Moses asked God to send someone else. So why do you think God didn't just choose someone else that was more willing to go, more willing to obey, and more willing to speak? Perhaps there were many men more qualified. But God is never about choosing us based on our own abilities or merits, but rather on revealing himself to us in our weakness. So Moses went, and a huge exodus occurred, and we were all wowed by that story. Moses is an example of questioning ourselves when we hear God tell us to act. We can rest on the fact that if he made us, if he created us, then he has power to make us and enable us to do what he's called us to do. He has the authority to do so. But what about those that struggle with their calling in life and not knowing what it is? It's cool to hear of God speaking to Moses in a burning bush. I mean, one would think that that occurrence alone would have solidified Moses' faith and he would have had no questions, but he did. So it doesn't matter if there's great fanfare or recognition or burning bushes. None of that helps if we don't believe. Back to knowing our calling and waiting for it and searching for it while we lead mundane lives of washing, cleaning, cooking, repairing, mowing, showing up for work, dealing with aches and pains, raising children and all the things. What if we live our entire lives on this earth and never lead a mass exodus of people out of slavery? Are we any less called than Moses? What if we know our dreams and desires and our strengths, but life gets in the way and we can never achieve our goals? Maybe we have a child that requires care 24/7. Maybe funds don't allow us to receive the training we need. Or maybe loss occurs and sets us back. This happens. Some of us wind up discarding all hope of ever fulfilling any kind of call we have on our lives. We would kill to have a chance like Moses, and we would jump at an opportunity to lead others. We know in Matthew 6 that it says to seek the Lord and all these things will be added to us. And we often define these things as lofty things like callings, gifts, and blessings. But in 1 Thessalonians 4:11, we're actually called to live quietly, mind our own affairs, and work with our hands. And I love what Wendell Berry says regarding a formula for a good life. Slow down, pay attention, do good work, love your neighbor, love your place, stay in your place, settle for less, and enjoy it more. That settle for less brings us to the issue with God, because that's how some of us feel, that we're always settling for never achieving our dreams and callings. But in fact, our dreams and callings begin with just being obedient to God, living a simple life like loving him and loving others, and out of that blossoms a life full of purpose. There's nothing wrong with wanting to fulfill a calling if there is one, but there is something wrong with pushing aside the everyday life in favor of the dream. Our aim should be to please him in an humble, rooted faith. We can sit and envy the guys like Moses that got God to come down and set a bush on fire and enable him to part the Red Sea and go down in history books as a man of God. Or we can rest while we dream and listen and enjoy today's ability to take out the trash, read to a child, love on a spouse, invite a friend to dinner, and pray for another friend in need. Perhaps that's the fullness of a life called to serve him, enjoying today, listening for his voice and obeying every minute, and resting when the sun goes down. Each of us is called to do the great and the small on any given day. No issues with God, only contentment with his presence.